COVID-19 vaccinations are underway for children between 5 and 11 years of age, and so is the marketing campaign to get kids and parents on board. It's a lot of effort for a segment of the population that is at virtually no risk from the disease. Friends, it is time for Hold the Line. Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. We knew it was going to happen, and now it is upon us. First, there was the will they actually approve the vaccine for children age 5 to 11? And we knew that they would because that's what the machine, the Democrat Party, the left, the Fauciites want, so they have. And soon we're going to see mandates for schools, for other things. In San Francisco, in fact, there's a mandate going in place for all public accommodations. You want to take your 5-year-old to go get a Happy Meal? Better show those vaccine cards. That's what we are heading for now, friends. This is complete and utter madness. But understand this, they're even redefining basic concepts in our society to try to justify these kinds of behaviors. I mean, here is Bill de Blasio, who is trying to tell everyone that forced vaccination actually gives back our freedoms to us.
I think what it says, your point about freedom is very powerful, that what is freedom? Freedom is the ability to go out there, live your life, have your job, be with the people you love. We were deprived of that for most of 2 years.
Right.
And vaccination actually gave us back that freedom. And I think people are going to realize as they see these mandates work, wait a minute, that's actually the thing we wanted.
Oh, okay, so do what we say, bend the knee, and you can have some freedom back. That's what they're saying. Bend the knee, and you can actually be somebody who has some freedom. Isn't that unfreedom, though? Aren't they actually just changing the whole... What about the freedom of choice that you have for whether or not you're going to get a shot that, in this case, particularly for children, they absolutely do not need? But as you know, the propaganda machinery is in full swing right now, trying to get all this stuff done. I mean, here's Biden tweeting out praise for Big Bird getting in on the action. And Big Bird tweeted out, I got the COVID-19 vaccine today. My wing is feeling a little sore, but it'll give my body an extra protective boost that keeps me and others healthy. And then Biden responded, the official Twitter account for Joe Biden, good on you, Big Bird. Getting vaccinated is the best way to keep your whole neighborhood safe. Yeah, they're making giant puppets now talk about how they got to get the shot because then they'll make it cool. Then kids will all want to get the shot. I mean, some kids are going to have severe reactions to it. Some kids may, in fact, even die from the effect of this vaccine. Adults have already died from the vaccine. They won't often talk about this, but that is reality. It can happen. It's rare, but it does occur. But they got a propaganda campaign to worry about right now. So Big Bird, for example, that's right, the 8-foot-tall yellow fake bird was on CNN talking to their chief medical correspondent about the shot.
I have one more question.
Oh, sure, Big Bird. What's that?
Well, I'm a little scared to get the shot because I don't like needles. Will it hurt?
Oh, it's okay to be scared and to have some of those big feelings, Big Bird. Can I tell you something? I'm a grown-up and I don't really like needles either. In fact, even as an adult, I don't like to look when the doctor puts that shot in my arm.
And I'm the same way too, Big Bird.
Well, but you're a doctor.
Yeah, but even some doctors don't like getting shots. Luckily, there are ways that we can manage some of those big feelings.
Oh, yeah, one thing that I find is maybe singing a song to distract yourself, maybe the ABCs while you're getting your shot.
It all has a very late Soviet era feel to it, doesn't it? Remember back when Saddam Hussein used to do children's books? True story, by the way. Now we've got Big Bird telling everybody to get the shot, or that he got the shot, I should say. Well, I mean, it's meant to make it seem like kids are going to go, oh, I want to get the shot too. It's not for adults. Clearly, this is meant to program children to think, oh, well, getting the shot is a good thing. And, get like a sticker with Big Bird on it, maybe get a little candy or something. But should kids be getting this shot? Well, the answer, from a risk perspective, epidemiologically speaking, no, they should not be getting the shot. But are they even going to have that choice? This is where things start to get really nasty really quickly. Right now, it's just about convincing people that it's safe and a good idea to get the shot for 5 to 11-year-olds. But are they going to move beyond it's a choice to you have to? You have to if you want to be in school. You have to if you want to be able to be brought by your parents to any place where there are other people. Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York, who is an awful, awful political leader, is saying, oh yeah, he actually wants to require, it's just a matter of time, he wants to require vaccines for kids age 5 to 11.
At what point will you ask them to also start checking for vax cards for 5 to 11-year-olds?
That's a very good question, and honestly, one we need to focus on now. We wanted to get to the day where we actually could vaccinate the youngest New Yorkers and get that rolling. We know it'll take a while. I mean, right now, to use the example of the 12 to 17-year-olds, very good news, we're almost at 79% of them. That's fantastic, but it did take a while. So it's a great question, Elizabeth. It's one I don't think we're going to settle immediately because it will naturally take a number of weeks for that age group to get vaccinated. But it's a question we need to answer for the weeks ahead, and we'll come back on.
Yeah, they're going to make kids get the shot in New York. That's going to happen. They've already decided that in California. They're going to require it for kids to go back to school next fall. So these blue states have completely lost their minds, and they hope that parents don't figure out. I mean, your child is really at about a 1 in a million risk. That's right, about a 1 in a million risk of dying from COVID. Maybe 2 in a million if you want to be very specific on the numbers, but still, or 1 in 500,000. Still very, very, very small. This is the kind of risk that you cannot worry about. The same way you can't worry about movers dropping a piano out the window by accident and crushing you when you're walking down the street. It's not a reasonable thing to be concerned about. You know what is a reasonable thing to be concerned about? How's California doing with COVID in general? You will recall that over the summer we heard a lot about Death Santis, they said, and how Florida was so awful when it came to COVID because the governor, doesn't believe the science, they said. Here's the problem. Tampa Bay headline here. California's COVID-19 case rate now twice Florida's, double Florida's. Why is that California has such a high vaccination rate and mask requirements and all kinds of other COVID Fauciite lunacy? Maybe it's because that stuff doesn't work as well as they say it does. And in the case of masks, it doesn't work at all, really. And so vaccines don't prevent you from getting it. They don't prevent you from giving it. Maybe we should also think about that and how firing people from their jobs because they won't get a vaccine that isn't really a vaccine, but more like a therapeutic, it seems kind of reckless. Here's Governor DeSantis explaining his thinking on it.
Look, nobody, no cop, no firefighter, no nurse, nobody should be losing their jobs because of these jabs. We have got to stand up for people and protect their jobs and protect their livelihoods. And we've seen the federal government, even though the Biden administration had always said this will never be mandated, and even they acknowledged the federal government doesn't have the power to mandate it. Fauci said it would never be mandated, and now all of a sudden they say there's grave danger, so it takes them 2 months to write a 500-page rule that they're trying to shove down the throats of the American people. That's wrong.
It is wrong. Governor DeSantis is right. We'll have more on all this with the First TV's Morgan Zegers come up in a moment. Let's talk about My Digital Money. Crypto market could get really hot in the months ahead, but there's a lot of digital currencies to choose from. You got Bitcoin, Ethereum, a lot of them out there. How do you get started? Where do you begin? My Digital Money. It's an easy-to-use, self-trading crypto IRA platform with incredible customer service. Your comfort and security is their absolute top priority, so they'll actually answer your phone calls and help you out when you're getting started. Crypto market's heating up. This could be a great time to get into this exciting technology-based investment. When it comes to your money, you deserve a team of dedicated professionals who have your back, speak to you honestly, treat you like a human, not a number. Check them out at mydigitalmoney.com. That's mydigitalmoney.com, and we'll be right back with more. Hold the line. President Biden's first 10 months in office have been marked by very few legislative victories, and those initiatives he has pursued have demonstrated a pretty fundamental misreading of America's actual needs. From the border crisis to canceling the Keystone XL pipeline to the infamous Afghan exit, the American public can agree on one thing. They're not going well these days under the Biden administration, and the muddled messaging that Biden's White House has not helped matters. Morgan Zegers, founder of Young Americans Against Socialism and contributor here on the First TV, joins me now to answer these questions. Morgan, great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Buck.
So here's a local Ohio news anchor who confronted Biden about his polling and how the approval rating's at about 38%. And here is how President Biden reacted to it.
I want to turn to your polling really quickly here. The latest polling from USA Today has your approval rating at 38%. A new CNN poll shows 58% of Americans believe that you aren't paying enough attention to the nation's most important issues. Is this giving you kind of a sign that maybe you need to recalibrate some of your administration's priorities as you approach that one-year mark?
As I looked at the polling data, literally as I was walking out of the office after doing another thing I had to do, is my polling numbers are the same, essentially what everyone from Bush to Clinton to all of Obama were at the same time. So there's a lot of things that have people that are really a great deal of anxiety, a great deal of concern, and they all relate to, even though we've created almost 6 million jobs since I came into office, we're in a situation where people they don't feel it right now. They don't feel it.
See, the problem, Morgan, is just that we don't know how awesome Biden's administration really is. That's apparently what he thinks.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in unprecedented times, Buck. It would be one thing if we were going through a really hard time as a nation like we are right now, and our leadership up at the top was saying, we are with you, we stand by you, we've got your back, and we're going to fix this, treating it almost as if it was like, in a hurricane where they put the hat on, they go and they walk on the ground with everybody that's on the scene, and they say, I'm standing by you in this. Instead, they're acting like nothing is happening, and they're pushing forward with their woke agenda. I was hearing earlier this morning about how, we're finally pushing forward with this infrastructure package that's going to solve so many problems. It's going to help with racism. It's going to help with equity. It's going to help with the supply chain crisis. We're here to help and fix this problem. And I'm sorry, but you guys caused the original problems. I don't want your solutions. I want you to stop providing solutions. They're only harming us more. So it makes me worried when they say we have even more ideas that we're about to slam down your throats. And it reminds me as well, Gavin Newsom. Everybody's saying, where the heck is this guy? He hasn't been around in weeks. Everybody's saying, where is he? And his wife came out, Buck, this is hilarious. His wife comes out and says, everybody has their things that they like to do when they're not working. Maybe he's in the office. Maybe he's spending time with family at home. Maybe he's doing a hobby. Give him a break. And I'm sorry, but now's not a time for our public servants to be going on breaks and relaxing. They need to have boots on the ground, showing us that they care and that they're going to get us through this hard time. I have no faith in the administration, and I personally believe people need to focus on state power level power and below, focusing on themselves.
Biden is having trouble on a whole bunch of fronts, the border, the economy, COVID, but also on foreign policy, which we can all remember was why he was brought in originally to be the VP on the Obama ticket because of Biden's exceptional foreign policy. Interesting to see where we are now in the aftermath of the Afghan withdrawal debacle versus what Biden was saying, how he was sounding back in 2007. Take a look at this flashback.
There's a lot at stake in how we end this war. It makes a big difference how we end this war. And it makes a big difference to tell the American people the truth about what our options are in ending this war. If tomorrow the order goes out from I'm President of the United States, I issue an order, end the war today, begin to withdraw all American troops. It will take a year to get the American troops out. Do you hear me now? That's the truth. It will take a year to get them physically out. Now, if you leave all the equipment behind, you might be able to do it in 7 months. And you leave those billions of dollars of weapons behind, I promise they're going to be used against your grandchild and mine someday.
What happened to that Biden? He seemed like he kind of knew what was going on a little bit more a long time ago in Afghanistan.
Right? Oh my gosh. Well, first thing is, okay, so he's still creepy in terms of his space and his awareness of the people around him. That's still sticking by. But what's gone is his sentence structure, his ability to pronounce words, his ability to just communicate with the crowd is so different than what we have now. And it's clear to everybody. So we are all very aware of the mental state of our president. We don't have to hear the doctor's reports from the White House. It's just propaganda at this point. The American people are very aware of what's going on here. What we're also aware of is exactly what Biden is saying in that video, Buck. We're all very aware that it was going to take a long time to actually properly remove ourselves from Afghanistan. Not everybody wanted an endless war, but we didn't have an endless war going on there. We had presence, just like we do in every area that we had military conflict in history. We still have people in Korea. We still have people in Germany. And that's for our own protection and for us to continue to lead on an international level. So the American people are very aware of these basic facts. I just love the fact that now, because of technology, we have the capability of hearing the words of our politicians that lied to us a decade ago, and now we can hold them accountable, or at least become more aware of the fact that what they're saying now is not what they were saying just a few years ago. So I'm thankful for technology in this sense, but it's just very frustrating.
The Biden victory dance that we've seen recently is around the infrastructure deal, Morgan. The House passed it on Friday. We're supposed to believe this will create, a bajillion, who knows how many jobs, a trillion jobs. It doesn't matter, they just make the numbers up, so who cares? We'll just make it up as we go along too, right? But just want to note that there's this clip floating around the internet in the aftermath of the infrastructure deal. Now we're being told why it's so good. I want to get your opinion on this. Mayor Pete, we still can think of him as mayor, even though he's a cabinet secretary running the transportation department, which is still pretty mind-blowing. But then again, if you look at the energy secretary, Jen Granholm, who's a true nincompoop, none of this is surprising. But here's Mayor Pete waxing philosophical on the racism of roads.
You give us the construct of how you will deconstruct the racism that was built into the roadways that you talked to the griot earlier when you broke that information with us. Can you talk to us about how that could be deconstructed?
I'm still surprised that some people were surprised when I pointed to the fact that if a highway was built for the purpose of dividing a white and a black neighborhood, or if an underpass was constructed such that a bus carrying mostly black and Puerto Rican kids to a beach, or that would have been, in New York was designed too low for it to pass by, that obviously reflects racism that went into those design choices. And I think we have everything to gain by acknowledging it and then dealing with it, which is why the Reconnecting Communities, that $1 billion, is something we want to get to work right away.
Yeah, I think people have some other top priorities than what possible racist subtleties were in the road building 100 years ago, mind you, Morgan.
Yeah, that's the thing. This is very nuanced. First of all, why are we talking about this? I get it if we were in a time of prosperity and peace and we could say, hey, you know what? Let's focus on some of the more smaller issues out there. And that's one of the things with woke leftists. We live in such privilege as Americans in general compared to other countries that we are able to complain about things like pronoun usage and woke words and all these new things that they complain about. It's a privilege to be able to consider those problems. So now that we're transitioning into this era of a supply chain crisis, of major, major inflation where we can't afford basic goods. I mean, I put gas in my 4Runner buck and it was like $80. So I'm hurting, okay? And I live by myself. I buy my own groceries, but it's expensive for me to just go and buy a small amount of groceries to feed myself now. And so I'm struggling in that way. The working class and middle classes are struggling. And then to see the representation of our federal government, especially the transportation secretary, when we've got this gas thing going on, talk about the racism of roads really frustrates me. Same thing with the media that's paying attention to it. I mean, this woman who's asking him the question, why is it even being asked? Now, here's the thing where it gets nuanced. I think it's actually really interesting that, yes, back in history, there was real racism and people decided, bad people that didn't like people based on their skin color, they made decisions to make roads that had terrible negative impacts on other people of other races. That's a racist thing to do, but that happened many, many, many decades ago. What we need to do to make sure that doesn't happen again is to learn from history. So you teach the kids history. You say back then, racism was a real problem and we fought that and we conquered that. And now we're in a better place as a country. So let's learn from history and not repeat it. But what's happening now is we aren't just learning from history and learning that's what happened. We are teaching our kids with critical race theory that this kind of behavior still happens. We've completely watered down what it means to be racist. I get called a racist all the time and all I do is believe in economic independence. I'm a conservative woman. I'm not racist, but they call me racist because they've diluted what that word means. And now it's hard for us to understand the differences between the real racism from 100 years ago with creating infrastructure that blocked out different races and the racism of today, which is basically just anybody who disagrees with the radical left. It's a shame.
I say Zegers for president in 2032, but we'll have to come back to that.
Buck, thank you. I'm never running for office. It sounds like a cesspool.
We'll see.
There's better ways to have change.
We'll see. Thanks, Morgan. Good to see you.
Thanks, Buck.
A big win in the fight against medical tyranny as a federal court blocks the Biden administration's vaccine mandate. When we return, Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, who's leading the fight against the mandate, explains what the ruling means for America. Let's talk about protecting the most valuable asset you own, your home. If you own a home like me and you don't guard it with home title lock, you're inviting home title fraud, a fast-growing crime. Cyber thieves around the world know our home values are sky high. That makes our equity a target. The crime is really easy, actually. Cyber thief forges your name on a property sale form and refiles it. Now he's on the deed to your home. You have no idea you're a victim. Then he takes out loans on your home and vanishes, leaving you to prove to the police you didn't commit bank fraud. Home Title Lock puts a virtual barrier around your home's title. The instant they detect tampering, they help shut it down. Look, if you have equity in your home, guard it with your life. Go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. And enter radio for 30 free days of protection. That code is radio for 30 free days of protection at HometitleLock.com. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton coming up next. Stay with us. A big win for Texas and unvaccinated American workers. Federal appeals court temporarily blocked President Biden's vaccine mandate on private companies after Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and others sued the administration over the imposition of these orders. But over the weekend, the White House said it's not giving up on pushing those mandates. Watch.
The president and the administration wouldn't have put these requirements in place if they didn't think that they were appropriate and necessary, and the administration is certainly prepared to defend them.
Attorney General Paxton joins us now to discuss this temporary victory. Walk us through what actually happened here with this lawsuit. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for being with us.
Hey, glad to do it. Thanks for having me on.
So, all right, let's start with this. What is the lawsuit about? What is the claim? What are you involved in here? How are you stopping this thing?
Yeah, so our claim is pretty simple. The president doesn't have the authority to order an agency that doesn't have the authority to require that employers require that their employees have a vaccine or get fired. There's nothing that gives the president the authority to do that. There's nothing in federal law that allows OSHA, which is the agency that was doing this. Congress has to specifically grant that authority. I'm not even sure they could do that, but certainly this is unprecedented. We've never had anything like this. We've never had a president this bold and this, willing to harm hundreds of thousands, if not millions of workers in America.
What's your response, Mr. Attorney General, when you hear people say, oh, but OSHA, I mean, this was, I think, Ron Klain, the White House Chief of Staff, said, if they can mandate hard hats, they can mandate shots.
I mean, that sounds like a nice thing to say. It's just not true. They have workplace safety, which involves dealing with chemicals and dealing with things like hard hats. But there is nothing close to allowing them to literally mandate that you have to give a vaccine, you have to take a vaccine or you lose your job. That's pretty extraordinary power. This is a constitutional republic. We're all free, and we don't have a government that can order things like that in this country, even though that little soundbite sounds kind of cute.
You know, we have not only the mandate supposed to go into effect for companies, businesses with over 100 employees, but the Surgeon General was recently asked about this for this administration. Here's what he said about extending their mandate to small businesses.
And Dr. Murthy, if the law survives legal challenges, will the administration be extending the mandate to smaller employers with fewer than 100 employees?
Well, Martha, certainly nothing is off the table at this moment, but the focus right now is on implementing the current rule that OSHA put out.
Nothing is off the table. That to me sounds like they will if they can. But so, Attorney General Paxton, how does this go now? How do you stop them? Where is this in the courts? What should people expect from the process here when it comes to the stopping of the vaccine mandate?
Well, at least they're being a little more honest here. Before, you remember the president said there was no way this was going to happen. And of course, here we are a couple months later. So at least they're now being honest about the fact that they want to do this for every possible human being in the country. It doesn't apply, obviously, if you're illegal. You can come across the border and you won't be required to get vaccinated or be tested. Well, where we are at now is we've got at least an injunction that stops it from going into effect. We're going to continue to argue on the merits. In order to get the injunction, the court had to acknowledge that we would suffer irreparable harm as a state. It wasn't just my state. There were South Carolina, Utah, Louisiana, and Mississippi joining us. And that we were likely, if it went to trial on the merits, to win. So we're in a good position here to help protect American workers from abuse from their own government.
I want to switch gears with you for a second here. The Biden administration recently, Joe Biden himself actually flip-flopped when it comes to this question of paying the families of illegal migrants separated from each other under the Trump administration, up to $450,000 an individual, up to $1 million a family. Biden initially said that that was essentially just a lie, not true. Now he's changed his mind a bit. Here's what he said.
If, in fact, because of the outrageous behavior of the last administration, you coming across the border, whether it was legal or illegal, and you lost your child, it's gone. You deserve some kind of compensation, no matter what the circumstance. What that will be, I have no idea.
Why would he have no idea? I mean, the Department of Justice is in his chain of command. What do you make of this?
I mean, look, I think he knows exactly. Well, I don't know if he knows what's going on, but the people that work for him do know what's going on, and maybe he can say that. But the reality is, this is just another incentive payment. This is an incentive payment for those who are not here yet to come. And I really believe that he will do whatever it takes. He's basically done that from day one, where he stopped all deportations and ignored federal law. Not just ignored it, but went against it, went opposite of federal law, and started allowing people to come here illegally by the millions. And so I think their goal is to get 10 million people here in 4 years. And it doesn't matter how they do it. It doesn't matter if they're criminal. It doesn't matter if they have COVID. It doesn't matter if they work for the cartels. It doesn't matter if they traffic in human beings. The Biden administration is for it.
And so this is likely then to just continue, isn't it? The flood of illegal immigrants into the United States, and notably a lot of them entering into Texas, and I'm sure a large portion of them staying inside the state that you serve as Attorney General. Your expectation is the federal government is not actually going to try to change things? There's no program they're going to implement to make this stop?
Well, look, they already ignore federal law. They go in direct opposition to federal law. They've ignored court orders. We're back in court with the Remain in Mexico program, trying to force them to implement it by giving deadlines to the court, by giving us discovery so we know exactly what's going on. So if we have to, we will try to hold their hand and help them accomplish what they're required to do by the Constitution and by federal law.
Attorney General Paxton, I also want to ask you just to bring us fully up to speed here, circling back for a second to the vaccine mandate issue before we let you get back to serving the people of the state of Texas. How does this play out now? We've got the Fifth Circuit came in and said there's a stay for now. The White House, as I understand it, has said everyone should prepare to keep going forward with the vaccine mandate regardless of what the Fifth Circuit has said. But can you just take us through the process and then tell us, do you think that this Supreme Court, if it gets all the way up there, is reliable on this issue?
I don't know if they're reliable, but the Biden administration certainly not be, they should be ignored on this point right now of telling companies to go forward. I would tell companies just the opposite. I would tell companies to take care of themselves, take care of their employees. We're in a crunch now, right now with the economy and people being employed and needing employees, especially in crucial industries like healthcare and transportation. I would tell companies, look, don't follow this. You don't have to follow this. There's a stay in place. Let this play out in the courts, and hopefully, whether the Supreme Court is reliable or not, hopefully they too can see that there's no law here authorizing such extreme behavior by the administration.
Texas Attorney General Paxton, appreciate your expertise, sir. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
Another day of testimony in the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. Senior writer at townhall.com, Julio Rosas, is in Kenosha, Wisconsin, covering this trial. He'll give us an update on what transpired during today's hearing when we return. I want to tell you about My Digital Money for a moment. Everybody wants to get into crypto these days, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, so many digital tokens out there, and the gains can be huge. But how do you get started? That's where My Digital Money comes in. It's an easy-to-use, self-trading crypto IRA platform with amazing customer service. I mean, they'll actually answer your phone calls. Plus, they have an unparalleled military-grade security for your coins and trigger orders to help you secure opportunities or limit losses. So this is a great platform for you to use, especially if you're new to crypto. When it comes to your money, you deserve a team of dedicated professionals. That's what you'll get with My Digital Money. Go to mydigitalmoney.com. Again, that's mydigitalmoney.com. We'll be right back with more. Hold the line. The state rested its case after a tough day in the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, the 18-year-old who's been charged with intentional homicide in the shooting deaths of two men during last summer's riots in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Today, a forensic pathologist gave testimony that Joseph Rosenbaum, one of the men killed that night, was reaching for Rittenhouse's rifle at the time he was shot. Watch.
Doctor, we talked about this hand wound and how that occurred. If someone is pointing a rifle at you, an AR-15, do you have an explanation of how that hand could be positioned that would result in the injury shown, and then also perhaps the injury to the thigh from that same round?
Well, as I said, this is a close range injury, and so his hand is in close proximity or in contact with the end of that rifle.
Hand in contact with the rifle. Testimony seems to bolster the defense's claim that Kyle Rittenhouse was acting in self-defense when he shot and killed Rosenbaum. Joining me now is senior writer for townhall.com, Julio Rosas. Julio is in Kenosha, where the trial is taking place and following it day in and day out. Julio, thanks for being here, man. What are the biggest takeaways from the proceedings in court today?
I mean, you basically just played it. I mean, because there was a lot of testimony, especially from Richie McGinnis, who was right behind Joseph Rosenbaum when he was shot. And Richie said that he saw Rosenbaum lunging for the weapon right before Rittenhouse fired it. And so, that expert testimony just basically reinforced the fact that his hand was very close, if not touching the end of the rifle. And so that further bolsters Rittenhouse's claim of self-defense. And, of course, this was a prosecution witness. This was when the prosecution was still making their argument. And that has just been habitual throughout the entire court proceedings, where their own witnesses have basically undercut the prosecution's opening argument. And so right now, the defense is currently leading their arguments.
Earlier in the week, there was that clip that went viral of one of the, again, prosecution's witnesses saying that he was shot while he was effectively in the process of assaulting Rittenhouse. This was the individual shot in the arm who survived. Was that still the single biggest moment, would you say, that went in Rittenhouse's defense's favor so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So Gage Grosskreutz, he did agree with the defense that Rittenhouse did not shoot him until after, because initially Grosskreutz had his hands in the air, but then he dropped it and he had a handgun, and he approached Rittenhouse with the gun and started to point it at his head, and that's when Rittenhouse shot him. And Grosskreutz agreed with the defense with that, and that just completely, again, just bolstered Rittenhouse's claim to self-defense.
The judge actually dismissed, Julio, one of the charges today, that of violating the curfew. Can you tell us how did that go down? What happened?
It was quite simple. It was just the fact that the prosecution didn't even make any arguments about Rittenhouse violating curfew. And of course, everyone out in the crowd, including myself, who was out there that night, were in violation of that curfew. And so the prosecution didn't. I guess it looked like it kind of was an oversight on their behalf, because that's literally one of the easiest charges that they can prove, that he was out past, but they didn't bring any witnesses. They didn't make any evidence towards that. And so after they rested their case, the defense said, well, hey, they didn't even make any arguments to that. And so the judge said, okay, that's right. And so that's why he dismissed it.
Judge Schroeder revealed today that some of the jurors were actually filmed this morning. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, so that happened this morning. Apparently, someone was filming the jury as when they were getting picked up by the bus today. And according to Judge Schroeder, the deputies, the sheriff deputies, have been escorting, approached the individual. And we don't know what the motive is. We haven't been told it, but they said that the deputies made the person delete the video because obviously filming the jury while trying to keep them, the whole point is to keep them anonymous and to, make sure that they help make a fair ruling and they're not being doxxed. But I will say that a lot of the potential jurors that were being interviewed last Monday, quite a few of them actually did express concern about further personal safety and being doxxed, because this is such a very heated trial, and this comes after an activist in Minneapolis claimed over the weekend that he knew of people here in Kenosha who were actively trying to take photos of the jury, which again would assume to be trying to coerce them to make a verdict that they would want. So it's a very, very disturbing thing that happened today, especially in the aftermath of the prosecution's case basically falling apart. So hopefully it doesn't happen again. But I mean, the fact that it happened once is not good at all.
The media has certainly been very biased in its coverage of this from the very beginning. Wanted to have you react to just a compilation we have here of the way that a lot of news outlets have been framing this case.
Kenosha shooter, Kyle Rittenhouse, he murdered 2 people, by the way.
Rittenhouse is basically what you would have had in a school shooter. He's a 17-year-old kid. He shouldn't have had a gun. He crossed state lines to supposedly protect property. No, he was going out to shoot people.
Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old vigilante.
Kyle Rittenhouse, a vigilante.
Kyle Rittenhouse, the armed teenage vigilante.
A 17-year-old vigilante, arguably a domestic terrorist, picked up a rifle, drove to a different state to shoot people.
Kyle Rittenhouse, a guy who's deeply racist, went with weapons to a Black Lives Matter protest looking to get in trouble. He did. He murdered a couple of people.
Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old kid, just running around, shooting and killing protesters.
You see the 17-year-old who was radicalized by Trumpism, took his AR-15 to Kenosha and became a killer.
I mean, they're all referring to him as a murderer, a killer, a racist also. I mean, what do you think, Julio?
I mean, it's just, I mean, frustration and aggravation doesn't even begin to describe how I feel because, I mean, I was there. I saw the second half of this and the way that they're describing it is not how it went down at all. And clearly they didn't even bother to look at the video evidence and the eyewitness testimony even before the trial started because, I mean, it clearly shows that Rittenhouse only shot people who were actively attacking him. And even the lead detective on the case under cross-examination from the defense agreed with the defense saying that, yeah, he only shot people who were actively attacking him. And the issue of whether or not he should or should not have been in Kenosha that night is kind of a moot point in terms of the actual case because he was there. I mean, that's just, there's nothing we could do about it. He was there. And so let's see if he shot in self-defense. And so it's just another, I mean, this is not unique to the Rittenhouse situation, but it's just another example of people in the mainstream media, people, typically Democrats, making just outrageous claims of even bother to do just basic research or even looking into the facts for themselves because the facts just don't support with what they're spouting. And it's just very, very frustrating and they should be ashamed of themselves, but they won't because they know they can get away with it.
Julio, thanks for being with us.
Thanks.
Jake from State Farm gets it. One of the country's biggest insurance companies is supporting the personal health decisions of its employees and ambassadors amid the vaccine mandate debate. We'll have that story coming up in Quick Hits. But have you ever thought about investing in real estate before? But you didn't have the time to do it on your own. You didn't want to make rookie mistakes. I felt exactly the same way as you until a little over a year ago. I love the idea of real estate investment, but how was I going to get started? Then I met my friends at Done For You Real Estate. They took all the guesswork out of it for me. They found me an awesome property. They rented it out for me right away. They managed the tenant for me. Now I get a check every month like clockwork. Don't wait another second to see if my buddies at Done For You Real Estate can do for you what they did for me. Visit doneforyoubuck.com to see how it works. Every step of the process, picking the city, the house, getting a loan set up, getting a tenant in place, and a management company to handle the whole thing for you. Just go to doneforyoubuck.com to see what my friends can do for you. Again, that website is doneforyoubuck.com. Begin your real estate investment journey today with experts. We'll be right back with Quick Hits. The Pfizer CEO says an annual COVID vaccination is in the cards for the future, and the Biden administration seems to have a new favorite word. That's after mandate, of course. Let's get into it in Quick Hits. So you might have seen that the numbers out there when it comes to inflation, the cost of some stuff you need to buy, right? That's really what we're talking about. The things you want to buy. Is it expensive? We have a problem with this? Is there an issue here with how expensive certain things are? As you know, the answer is certainly yes. Prices are rising. There are supply chain snarls. There are all these issues. But inflation is the one that really gets people concerned because that can just eat away at your wages, at your savings. It's a very damaging thing economically. And it's a result of government monetary policy and overspending and putting too much cash out there in circulation to try to pay bills the government shouldn't be running up in the first place. So what do? Do they address this reality? They say, you know what, we're going to actually deal with... No. The Biden administration would rather just say that inflation is transitory.
We take inflation very seriously.
Economists call all these things transitory effects.
These one-time increases in prices are likely to have only transitory effects on inflation.
There will be transitory impacts as it relates to inflation.
I believe it's transitory.
A transitory impact.
In the end, it will be transitory.
These inflation rises will be transitory, that they will come back down next year. Inflation is going to come down next year. Inflation will come down next year.
Talk of inflation. The overwhelming consensus is going to pop up a little bit and then go back down.
People fully expect this inflation to be temporary.
Yeah, they want it to be temporary. They want you to think it's temporary. It's not going to be. First of all, everything's temporary, right? In the long run, we're all dead, so start with that. But beyond that, this inflation is actually going to get worse, especially if they pass this massive spending package of the Build Back Better agenda and all this other stuff that's going on, but they don't like math. State Farm has actually backed up Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, amid the whole vax kerfuffle out there right now. Here's State Farm putting out a statement. Remember, Aaron Rodgers didn't get the shot, said he was immunized. People got mad at him. They wrote this: "We don't support some of the statements that Rodgers has made, but we respect his right to have his own personal point of view. We recognize our customers, employees, agents, and brand ambassadors come from all walks of life with different viewpoints on many issues. Our mission at State Farm is to support safer, stronger communities. To that end, we encourage vaccinations, but respect everyone's right to make a choice based on their personal circumstances." Wow. A nuanced statement, respecting freedom, not agreeing with necessarily, but just respecting the freedom of some to disagree. Isn't that remarkable? Isn't that a thing that we would hope to see a whole lot more of? Wouldn't that be nice? Well, the Pfizer CEO, who I believe has said that vaccine misinformation should be a criminal offense, just to put that out there. So they're not even feeling the need to hide their authoritarian impulses anymore. Here's the Pfizer CEO on the possibility, which I've been saying even on this show and my radio show for quite some time here, the possibility of a revaccination situation year in and year out. Oh, it's real.
Is there going to be an annual vaccine for COVID-19? Is a booster shot enough right now?
I think the booster shot, the third dose, is the one that gives very, very high level of protection, higher than the originally achieved levels of protection, which was 95% with the two doses. The question is, how long will it last? It looks like that it will last for a year. Looks like that there is a chance that this will become an annual revaccination.
Oh, you mean the head of the company that makes the most of these vaccines, if anybody out there? You mean the head of that company? He's like, yeah, you're going to have to get the shot every year. Every year. What a shock. Can there really be fossil fuel reparations, in a sense, where the fossil fuel producers have to actually pay for their previous emissions? Member of the squad, Ilhan Omar, says yes.
Large bipartisan majority of the United States public believe that fossil fuel corporations have a responsibility to address the dire consequences of their pollution. The largest fossil fuel producers must pay for their past greenhouse gas emissions, which could raise at least $500 billion alone. They must pay for the lives they have taken, for the futures they have robbed, and for the lasting toll their greed will have on the planet for generations to come.
Completely insane. Completely insane. But people say it. Members of Congress. That's it for tonight's Hold the Line. The No Spin News with Bill O'Reilly is up next. Shields high.